What if the biggest economic shift of this decade is already happening, right under our noses? Not announced on breaking news, not trending on social media, not debated on primetime television. Instead, it's happening quietly, boardroom by boardroom, deal by deal. Right now, while most people are distracted by stock prices, elections, and viral drama, some of Japan's most powerful companies are doing something that could reshape global business for decades to come. They're packing up critical parts of their operations. They're moving decision makers. They're placing long-term bets. And surprisingly, they're not rushing into China, India, or Vietnam. They're choosing Australia. At first, that sounds almost unbelievable. Australia? The country better known for kangaroos, beaches, and wide open land. But once you look deeper, this move starts to make unsettling sense. For decades, Japanese corporations followed a familiar formula. Manufacturing in China. Supply chains stretched across East Asia. Headquarters firmly rooted in Tokyo. Growth depended on stability that seemed guaranteed. But that world no longer exists. Geopolitical tensions are rising, trade rules are shifting, supply chains are breaking, energy costs are unstable, and executives are realizing something uncomfortable. The old system is fragile. Imagine you're running a trillion-yen corporation that has survived wars, recessions, and technological revolutions. Your responsibility isn't just next quarter's profit, it's survival for the next 50 years. Now imagine waking up every morning knowing that one political decision, one regional conflict, or one supply chain collapse could cripple your entire operation. That fear is now driving decisions at the very top of Japanese corporate power. And Australia is quietly becoming the escape route. Why Australia? Because it offers something incredibly rare in today's world: stability, a stable government, strong rule of law, deep ties with Western economies, close proximity to Asia, without being trapped inside Asia's rising tensions. Australia sits in a sweet spot most countries can only dream of. Close enough to serve Asian markets, far enough to stay geopolitically safe, rich enough in resources to fuel the future economy. And Japanese executives have noticed. This isn't about one factory or one office. This is about strategic relocation. It's about shifting power, influence, and long-term planning away from traditional centers and towards something safer. What makes this even more fascinating is how quietly it's happening. No bold announcements, no flashy press releases, no dramatic headlines, just capital flowing in, partnerships forming, infrastructure expanding, and the public barely notices. That's usually how the biggest shifts happen. Now let's talk about the first giant that started turning heads: Toyota. Most people remember Toyota's exit from Australian manufacturing in 2017. Factories closed, jobs disappeared. Analysts called it the end of an era. But that story didn't end. It simply changed direction. Toyota didn't abandon Australia. They repositioned. Instead of old-school car manufacturing, Toyota began investing in hydrogen energy, renewable infrastructure, and advanced research partnerships. Hydrogen production facilities, clean energy systems, technology that could power entire industries, not just vehicles. These aren't side projects. We're talking about billions in long-term investments. Why would Toyota do this now? Because Australia has what Japan desperately lacks: land, sunlight, and resources. Australia has the potential to become a global hydrogen superpower. Toyota wants to be at the center of that future, and Toyota is just the beginning. Once the first giant moves, others follow. That's when Mitsubishi stepped in. Mitsubishi isn't just a company, it's a corporate empire. Banking, energy, mining, real estate, global trade. Australia checks every box. But here's the key detail most people miss. Mitsubishi isn't just investing in projects, they're shifting decision-making power. Key regional functions are moving closer to Australian soil. That tells us something crucial. This isn't about profits next year. It's about control over the future. Executives don't relocate influence unless they believe the ground beneath them is safer. And this pattern repeats. Again, and again, and again. By the time most people realize what's happening, the foundations will already be set. And the next company takes this trend into a whole new dimension. Tech, media, and fashion follow the money. If heavy industry and energy were the first wave, technology and culture are the second. And this is where things get even more interesting. SoftBank, a company known for bold bets, massive risks, and a founder who thinks decades ahead. Masayoshi Son doesn't invest casually. When SoftBank moves, it moves with intent. In recent years, SoftBank has been pouring money into Australian fintech startups, artificial intelligence companies, and renewable energy ventures. But the real signal isn't the investments themselves, it's the whispers. Reports suggest SoftBank is considering establishing a major innovation hub in Sydney, a base that could oversee operations across the entire Asia-Pacific region. Think about what that means. Thousands of high-paying jobs, global capital flowing through Australia, tech influence shifting south. This would be a major rerouting of Japanese tech power. Then comes Sony. Once known only for electronics, Sony is now a global entertainment giant. Music, film, gaming, streaming. And Australia offers something Sony values deeply: English-speaking creative talent combined with generous government incentives. Sony Music has expanded aggressively. Sony Interactive Entertainment is backing Australian game studios. Industry insiders whisper about a future content creation hub. Australia already hosts world-class film crews and production talent. Sony sees diversification, spreading creative risk while tapping into global audiences. Then there's fashion. Fast Retailing, the company behind Uniqlo, isn't just opening stores. They're studying Australia as a logistics and operations base for Oceania and Southeast Asia. Distribution centers, supply chain networks, even local manufacturing possibilities. Fast fashion demands speed. Australia offers proximity without chaos. And once logistics move, control follows. Each of these companies is doing something similar, using Australia not as a side market, but as a strategic anchor. Which brings us to energy, the lifeblood of the future economy. Panasonic understands this better than most. Batteries, energy storage, sustainability. Australia has sunlight, lithium, land, and demand. Panasonic's partnerships with Australian researchers aren't experiments. They're blueprints. Blueprints for manufacturing. Blueprints for scale. Blueprints for global leadership in energy storage. And once energy infrastructure is built, industries cluster around it. That's how economic centers are born. Infrastructure, resources, and quiet power. Not all moves make headlines. Some are quieter, more industrial, more powerful. Hitachi is one of them. Trains, power grids, smart cities. Australia is expanding fast. New rail lines, energy upgrades, urban growth. Hitachi isn't just selling equipment. They're embedding themselves into the backbone of Australia's future infrastructure. Engineering centres, service hubs, long-term contracts. Once infrastructure is built, it lasts for generations. Then comes Sumitomo. Once focused mainly on mining, Sumitomo is now diversifying into agriculture, renewables, data centres, and technology. They're not extracting anymore. They're integrating. Food systems, energy systems, digital systems, that signals permanence. Nippon Steel's strategy might be the most misunderstood. Australia doesn't produce much steel anymore, but it controls iron ore. By exploring local processing, Nippon Steel gains control over its supply chain while helping revive Australian manufacturing. And finally, Mitsui, the quiet giant. They rarely announce, they rarely boast, but they invest everywhere. LNG, renewables, healthcare, agtech. Add it all together and a picture emerges. Australia isn't a backup plan, it's becoming core. Why this matters and what comes next. So why is all of this happening now? Because multiple forces are colliding. China risk, supply chain fragility, energy transition, Japan's aging population. Australia solves multiple problems at once. Safe distance, resource security, workforce access, political alignment, and the most important detail? This is happening quietly. By the time the headlines catch up, the deals will be done. The infrastructure will be built. The influence will be locked in. For Australia, this could be transformational. Technology, jobs, expertise, global relevance. For Japan, it's survival through diversification. For the world, it's a reminder. Economic power doesn't disappear. It moves. And those who see it early gain the advantage. Now here's my question for you. Is this shift a smart move that stabilizes the global economy? Or the beginning of new imbalances we're not ready for? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. Because the future isn't waiting. It's being built quietly right now. Stay curious.